Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, "It is mine to avenge. I will repay," says the Lord. The Bible verse Romans 12 verse 19 serves as a powerful theme for Clayton's journey. In the story, Clayton is consumed with the desire for revenge after his father's brutal death at the hands of outlaws. His thirst for vengeance is overwhelming, and his heart is torn between justice and his personal need to settle the score. The verse highlights an essential truth. Vengeance belongs to God alone, not to mankind. Clayton's actions throughout the story reflect his internal battle between acting on his fury and understanding that retribution may not be his responsibility. As Clayton contemplates revenge, he grapples with the weight of his father's death and the cycle of violence that is perpetuated when revenge is sought. The verse resonates deeply in this context, offering a subtle call for Clayton to release the burden of vengeance and consider mercy. Clayton's ultimate decision to stop the cycle of violence and choose a different path mirrors the lesson from this verse. Vengeance may not heal the wounds. It only continues the cycle of pain. The sun had just begun to set, casting long shadows over the vast plains of the Wild West. The dry air carried with it the scent of sagebrush and the distant echoes of Clayton Matthews' painful memories. His father, once a respected man of their small frontier town, had been killed by a ruthless band of outlaws. Clayton was just a boy when it happened, but the scars were deep, and the thirst for revenge grew stronger every year. His father had tried to protect their ranch from the outlaws, but in the lawless world of the West, justice was a fleeting concept. Clayton remembered the look on his father's face in the moments before he was taken, a man who had tried to uphold some semblance of order in a world that thrived on chaos. His death had been swift and brutal, and the men who had killed him had escaped without consequence. The law hadn't reached them. The law had never mattered. Years passed, and Clayton grew into a man hardened by loss, working the ranch that his father had once tended. But the rage simmered beneath the surface, a fire that could not be extinguished. Every day, the urge for revenge gnawed at him, eating away at his soul. One evening, as the campfire crackled, Clayton's mind raced with thoughts of his father's death and the men who had taken him away. The anger that had once been a quiet simmer was now a full-blown blaze. He could feel it burning inside him, pushing him towards something he knew would consume him. Then, as if fate had conspired to push him further down the path of vengeance, a rider appeared on the horizon. Clayton's breath caught in his chest. It was Will, a man who had known his father and fought alongside him in the old days. Will was like a brother to Clayton, but even he couldn't escape the curse of the past. Will dismounted slowly, his face grim. There was a sadness in his eyes, a quiet understanding of the storm brewing inside Clayton. "You planning to ride out tonight?" Will asked, his voice low, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. "I need to do this," Clayton said, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't bear this anymore. I need to avenge my father's death." Will stepped closer, placing a hand on Clayton's shoulder. His eyes held a mix of concern and understanding, but Clayton didn't care about hesitation anymore. His father had been murdered, and Clayton was determined to make those men pay. "I thought we agreed that vengeance doesn't bring peace," Will said softly. "That justice, real justice, is what your father would have wanted." "Justice?" Clayton's voice cracked with anger. "What kind of justice did my father get? They killed him without mercy, without a trial. They didn't care about justice." Clayton's hand moved to his side, instinctively reaching for his father's revolver, the same weapon that had been passed down to him, the weapon that had once delivered swift judgment. "You're right," Clayton continued, his tone bitter. "They killed him, and I can't let them get away with it. This has to end." Will shook his head, his voice gentle but firm. "I know how you feel, Clayton. I know the pain of losing someone you love. But revenge doesn't fix anything. It only creates more pain, more loss." Clayton's eyes filled with tears, his father's face flashing in his mind. Will's words hit hard, but the anger was too much to ignore. "I'm not like my father," Clayton whispered, turning away from Will. "I don't have his strength, his wisdom, but I have something else. I have my father's gun, and I'll use it." The moon hung high in the sky, casting a pale light over the dusty trail as Clayton rode out into the night, his thoughts consumed with the faces of the men who had killed his father. They were close now. Clayton could feel it. His heart raced as the distant sound of hooves echoed across the plains. The time for vengeance had come. He reached the camp before dawn. The outlaws gathered around a fire, their voices rising and falling in drunken revelry. Clayton's eyes locked onto the leader, Duke, the man who had pulled the trigger on his father. Clayton's hand gripped the cold steel of his revolver, his heart pounding in his chest. He stepped closer, moving in the shadows, his gun raised. The leader, Duke, noticed him, sneering as he rose from the fire. "So it's you, Winters," Duke said, his voice cold. "Thought we'd be seeing you sooner or later." Clayton felt the anger surge again, but this time, something held him back. He hesitated, the words from his father echoing in his mind. Vengeance is the enemy of peace. He had never truly understood that until now. Was this truly justice, or was it just another cycle of violence? His gun wavered in his hand. Was he ready to walk down the same path as his father? To become the man he feared, the man who carried the weight of vengeance in his hands? Just as Clayton raised his gun again, Will appeared from the shadows, his own revolver aimed at Duke. "I knew you couldn't do it," Clayton Will said softly. "You were chasing something that would only destroy you." The gunshot rang out, but it wasn't Clayton's hand that pulled the trigger. It was Will's. Duke fell to the ground, lifeless. Clayton stood frozen, the weight of Will's actions sinking in. Will had saved him from becoming the man he feared. Will had chosen mercy over vengeance. The wind shifted as Clayton looked down at Duke's body. For the first time, he felt relief instead of rage. The storm inside him had quieted, and the weight of vengeance lifted. Will walked over, placing a hand on Clayton's shoulder. "It's over now. You don't have to carry that weight anymore." Clayton nodded, his voice hoarse. "It's not just about revenge, Will. It's about peace. And for the first time, I feel it. The kind of peace I never thought I'd find." Together, they mounted their horses and rode off into the rising sun. Clayton had sought revenge, but in the end, he had found something far more precious, the possibility of redemption. And with Will by his side, Clayton knew he had a chance to face the future without the burden of vengeance. The verse Romans 12, verse 19, serves as the perfect encapsulation of Clayton's journey, a man torn between justice and vengeance, struggling with the consequences of his past actions. In the end, the true message of the verse is clear. Vengeance does not bring peace. Only through mercy and the willingness to let go of the past can Clayton find healing and redemption.